Hi, I'm Karma Parrish, and I'm with NorthPark Community Credit Union. And this month, I am excited to be talking to Tom Sakash, who is with CUNA, Credit Union National Association. And Tom, we're just going to jump right in. Tell us who CUNA is, tell us what you do with them, and tell us why CUNA matters, not just to the credit union industry at large, but to NorthPark.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Karma, for having me. So CUNA, the Credit Union National Association, is the national trade association for credit unions. And what that means is that we support, protect, unify, and advance the credit union industry. And the way that we do that is through three sort of primary goals or strategies. The first and most important thing that we do is we advocate for credit unions in Washington, D.C. So when we talk about Congress or we talk about our regulators like the NCUA and even the White House, we have lobbyists on staff who advocate for credit union priorities. The most important one is our not-for-profit tax status. So you may know that credit unions are not-for-profit financial cooperatives, and we make sure that Congress understands that. So if there's ever a tax conversation or if Congress is reviewing the tax code, we make sure that they understand why credit unions are not-for-profit and the good work that they do in their communities. And it's really important that we have that voice and we have that representation in the federal government because there are other interests like bankers and other financial groups who believe that credit unions should be taxed, and that's mostly because they know that taxing credit unions would be pretty difficult for our credit unions to deal with. And so, sort of our job one is making sure that Congress and other lawmakers in Washington, D.C. understand the value of credit unions. My role within that is supporting smaller credit unions like NorthPark Community Credit Union. I oversee a small credit union committee of CEOs of small credit unions from across the country who meet with the NCUA, our prudential regulator, on a regular basis so that they understand the challenges facing small credit unions. One of the biggest challenges that they face is regulatory burden. Oftentimes when new laws are passed, new regulations are approved, they disproportionately affect smaller shops who have fewer employees, fewer resources to be able to understand how those regulations affect their operations and how they do business. And so we really want to make sure that Congress and the NCUA know that smaller credit unions have a really hard time with any added regulations or even changes. Even efforts to streamline regulations can be burdensome because it's a change and you have to make changes to your policies and how you do things. And so I really make sure that we have a voice, not just for credit unions overall, but smaller community and locally focused credit unions.
So, Tom, there, was a recent change in office, and is there anything, as you say, you guys do a lot of advocate work. What do you guys see in the change in the industry when there's not just a change in the office, but a change in the party that serves? What are you seeing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So certainly the two parties view financial services and the way they should be overseen and regulated differently. When Republicans are in office in the White House or whether they control Congress, you often see an environment of deregulation or less regulations. That's it seems to be their overall policy standpoint. And when Democrats come into office, whether that be the White House or Congress, it's often more focused on consumer protection, which is often done through added laws and regulations that ensure that financial institutions are doing things in a way that doesn't harm the consumer. And so you have to play both sides, and CUNA does a great job of doing that. So it's actually written into our bylaws as an organization to have an equal number of Democratic lobbyists and Republican lobbyists. And so when you see these shifts in who controls the federal government, so to speak, we are very nimble and very able to adapt to that because we have such great relationships on both sides of the aisle, without a doubt.
So that's very informative. I was trying to think of another question to follow up. With CUNA, do you serve all of the states across the nation? Do you have representation at the state level or just at the national?
Yeah, so we primarily are the National Trade Association. You know, we sort of focus on federal issues, but we also have a great partnership with all of our state league associations. So every state in the country has a state league that focuses on state issues, working with their state lawmakers, their state legislatures, because there are a lot of state chartered credit unions and a lot of laws and regulations within a state that affect how a credit union operates. And so we sort of work together. Oftentimes we provide some support down to the state level to help them in different state issues that they might be fighting. And at the same time, a lot of the state leagues have great relationships with sort of the federal lawmakers, those who are elected from their individual states. And they provide great intel and great information about how to sort of engage with lawmakers from their states. And so it's a really collaborative relationship between CUNA and the different state leagues. And it really helps us be a lot more comprehensive in how we protect and support credit unions at the federal and at the state level.
Nice. So one more thing, we just finished GAC. Tell us a little bit about what GAC is and why does it matter?
Absolutely. GAC is our governmental affairs conference. And typically, when there's not a pandemic going on, 5,000 credit union professionals and volunteers and board members, such as NorthPark Community Credit Union, who often comes to DC during this conference. They meet with their members of Congress in their offices right on Capitol Hill to say to them in person what is important and what it means to support credit unions in our laws and regulations. And that in-person engagement is so important. You know, when you show up into their office and they put a face to the industry and to the work that's being done in their communities and in the places that they represent, it really has an impact. And so this conference really allows us to tell our story and the credit union story and the difference that we make in the lives of our members in a really personal and impactful way. And so really important conference. We did it virtually this year. And so all of those meetings that happened with lawmakers this year were done over Zoom or other virtual meeting environments. But we're hoping next year we'll be able to return to DC and have those meetings in person because they really are impactful without a doubt. But it's a great conference and you always feel afterwards, you know, rejuvenated about, you know, how great credit unions are and how important they are in their communities. And, you know, you always want to just, you know, do everything that you can after that conference is over to see that they are able to continue to serve their members in their communities in greater ways. So it's a great event.
Yeah. No, I really enjoy it. I have to say it's one of the cooler parts about my job that I didn't even, you know, get to experience before the last 2 years. And I've really enjoyed it. Kind of intimidating, you know, going to Washington and going in their offices and talking to them, but they are real people. And it is really exciting. You know, I've gone the last 2 years and they remembered some of the member stories that we told them. So there is, it's a room full of credit union CEOs and some of us are selected to tell actual stories. And usually it's a CEO who is in the district of that congressman or congresswoman and talk to them about that and the impact that credit unions have in their area. So that's very cool. One of the things that our credit union is working on, we're actually almost finished with it, is we have what we download every month. It's supposed to be, I think, like once a year, but we do it monthly, where we can attach where our member lives with what legislators are in their area. And so we're actually feeding that into our system so that then we can actually send emails to those legislators and say, we serve these members that live in your district, and we're not giving them their financial information, but we're just giving them an overview of some of the challenges that our members face. You know, are they struggling with payday loans? Are they struggling with you know, lower FICO individuals and getting the need that they have, that they can get, and just a number of things. And we've already found that I actually spoke at the State House last year for this reason, because I was able to show that without transparency in medical billing, the impact that that has on people's credit. You know, it reduces their credit. So someone who was an A plus credit, they get this massive bill for their medical expenses, and they fight this for, you know, 6 months to a year, and meanwhile their credit goes down, so they're actually paying more for those loans. And so this has a real impact. So you know, we have session that's going on right now in our state, and that's, or just finished maybe, but that's a real thing, is some of these laws that these legislators are doing. And just through the conversations that I've had, I've been able to assist them to see the financial burden that some of the decisions that they have that are not, you know, finance related, but they have an impact. So it's been really cool for me. I tend to not want to stand up in front of people, and yet I'm burdened by what my members struggle with because of some of those decisions at the state level, as much as at the federal or national level. So,
Yeah, and
all right.
it's important that you do too, right? You know, what we always say at CUNA is that there's no one else who can tell your story but you, as the leader of a credit union. You know, these other special interest groups have highly paid lobbyists and a
Yeah.
lot of resources to, you know, sort of throw the kitchen sink at these lawmakers. We in the not-for-profit credit union movement, we don't have that. And you know, the funny thing is, what we have is better than that. We have better than highly paid lobbyists and you know, unlimited budgets for lobbying and PACs and things like that. We have the leaders of credit unions who can share stories about actually helping people every single day, and you know what things prohibit you or inhibit you from doing that. And there's no more effective message. There's no better way to make change for the better for credit union operating environments than those stories. And so it can be intimidating. I've been in those rooms without a doubt. And when you see those high ceilings and those, you know, the fancy artwork, you know, it definitely makes you a little nervous, but you know how important it is to share those stories nonetheless. And so thank you for doing it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I have to tell you a funny story. So when she asked me to testify, I mean, I was freaking out, and turned out to be the biggest blessing. I got an inner ear infection, so I had vertigo really bad. So I go up there to stand, and I'm like, okay, they're all upside down. I can totally do this. So it actually made it so much better for me, because I was kind of nervous. But yeah, you're right. It really does need to come from us, and that's how we are serving our members. You know, you don't just have a checking account here or a loan here, and that's all we do for you. We're really fighting for you in so many different ways, including transparency of medical billing, believe it or not.
Right.
So,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
all
Yeah.
right. Well, thank you, Tom. I appreciate your time today, and thank you for all that you do for us.
Thank you, Karma.